That
Hello, everyone. This particular meeting is we're going to discuss the template that I make for the 1908 to 22 and 22 to 38 series bureau issues. If Heidi, if you could go ahead and put up the template itself. Okay, I've had several collectors ask about some of the nuances of the template, and just to get started, the template is a great tool for figuring out sizes. Each one of the sizes in both series are pretty much represented there. The only one that is technically not there is number 542 as far as size, but it's only a 1/4 millimeter taller, so that's typically not a problem. You can still use the stamp that it says to use to figure out 542. But getting to the template itself, if you're working backwards, if you believe you have a particularly rare stamp, on the right side of the template, you'll notice that I list the stamps from the Washington Franklins as well as the 4th Bureau that particularly have some decent value in the 1, 2, and 3 cent denominations. The main size that is given for each set of stamps, we'll take the first one. It says 19.5 to 20 by 22 to 22.25 millimeters is the size that Scott gives for 538 through 541. And in order to, if you have what you think is one of those numbers, you use the number that's in parentheses, in this case 492. You move over to the left where the 492 is, and if your stamp is the same size and it's the 1 cent stamp or 3 cent stamp, you have a 538 or 541. If it's a 2 cent stamp, you still have to type it, either type 2 or type 3. Now, keep in mind that over on the stamp that says 492, the size that is given is 19.5 to 20 by 22. This is the size that Scott actually gives for the horizontal rotary coils. I'm not sure why they're allowing the 538 to 541 as being possibly larger. They are coil waste of the unwatermarked horizontal coils. So I'm not sure of their reasoning why they're stating that it could be a 1/4 millimeter wider. As you go down through the right side, the next one is number 542. And again, it's 19 by 20.5 to, it's 19 by 20.5 to 20.75. Again, 486 is what is used to check that. And the catalog does the same thing. It just gives one size of 19 by 22.5. Now, this is the only stamp that is not represented in actual perfect size on the template, but it's just a 1/4 millimeter, and 486 is all you need to check. It's going to be extremely close to the height, and matter of fact, it'll be taller than any of the other stamps from the 3rd Bureau that are up there on the template on the left side. The dollar signs on the right side next to each, at the end of each Scott number, is a relative value for what that stamp is worth. So whereas 538 is in the single $10 denominations, the 539 is worth thousands of dollars, anywhere from 1 to 9. And go down to the bottom to 596, and you've got $6 signs. That is in the hundreds of thousands. So that is the reason for the dollar signs. The stamps themselves, the perforations in the middle, are actual stamp perforations. These have been cut from stamps that have been checked, make sure that the perforations are genuine, blacked out, and put on the template. So make sure that when you use those, that you're checking the stamps by either overlaying the template or putting the stamp on top of the perforations. But make sure that you use magnification. It doesn't take much for a stamp to be slightly off in the perforations in order to might be considered fake. Now, if you're not concerned about fake perforations in a lot of the stamps, like the offsets, most all the Fourth Bureau, except for the 4 rare ones at the bottom of the template on the right, they're, the perforations shown here will be able to determine which perforation gauge your stamps are without any problem. Usually it's the low denomination coils and higher price stamps that tend to have fake perforations or reperfed edges. So on the left now, going back the other way, if you don't know what your stamp is and you just want to figure it out, you're just starting from scratch. Just simply start placing the stamps on the template on your stamp and checking for size. Now, I find it easiest to check one set of frame lines at a time, opposite frame lines. I don't try to line up all 4 frame lines at the same time. That can get, you're trying to nudge it one way or the other. Just line up the top and bottom, see if that lines up. Line up the sides then, see if that lines up. And once you do line up, you can use the explanation sheet. If you could bring that up, Heidi. Here, let's say your very first one that you checked ended up being a flat plate sheet stamp from the 1908 to 22 series. Those numbers listed to the right are all the possibilities that your stamp could be. From this point, check perforations. You can narrow it down quite a bit from there. Sometimes you're going to have to check the watermark. And then finally, on the 2 and 3 cent stamps, you're going to have to check types. When you get down to the flat plate booklet in the same series, a lot of people do not realize that the flat plate booklet stamp is very slightly shorter and wider than your sheet stamp. But it is not as wide as the horizontal rotary coil. In this case, it shows number 492, two marks below it. So you really have those three sizes that are going to be close, but there's a definite difference. Just so when you believe you have a sheet stamp, might have just one straight edge, check to make sure that it is not a flat plate booklet stamp. The same holds true for the 1922 to 28 series. Flat plate sheet and flat plate booklets are different sizes. The booklet stamp, again, is slightly wider, but not as wide as the horizontal rotary coil number 597. And also keep in mind that some of the first templates that I made may not have had a 597, they may have had a 599. But if your stamp is listed on the right side, let's say I used a 603 instead of a 597, you could literally just switch the numbers. Either one can be used to identify any of those numbers there to the right, 578 and 79, 94, 95, or the rest in that. The same is true with some of the other stamps. I didn't always use a 492 up on top. And I didn't always use 634 near the bottom. Most of the time that was 634, but sometimes it was a 632. Other than that, if we could go back to the template itself, the other thing to keep in mind is if you're new to trying to ID Washington Franklins, keep in mind that the offset stamps are a different size than the flat plate sheet. So it's going to be close, but if you check the back of your stamp, typically an offset stamp does not have set off or traces of ink that is the same color as the stamp itself on the back side, whereas a flat plate sheet and flat plate booklet will both have set off, which is the speckles of ink that are the same color as the stamp itself. That also holds true for the flat plate sheet and flat plate booklet for the 4th Bureau stamps down at the bottom. So with that in mind, I think we can go back to general discussion. We can go ahead and close these out and see if anybody has any questions. If you could go ahead and unmute.
Everybody, you can unmute yourself now if you want to speak.
Anybody have any questions?
Hey, Steve, one of the things that you don't see on that you haven't showed, and I saw somebody question you, was about the earliest known use on the other side. Is that correct? You're not really explaining that.
Yeah, the templates that are made with stamps also have on the back side the EKUs for all of the 1, 2, and 3 cent for the Washington Franklins. Now, my latest template that I make is printed on a transparency, and there was no way to add that to the back. And if anybody wants, I can I have a worksheet that I can put together that will list all the EKUs. But again, it's just a matter of, you can go to the catalog, it'll give you the dates for any particular stamp. And using the earliest known use can be a helpful way to identify the stamps. If you think you have, let's say 331 or 332, which came out in the sheet stamp came out of 332 in December of 08. Whereas 375, which is the double line watermark, didn't come out until considerably later. If you had an early 1909 use, you're going to have the 332. You can always use dates to help. It's not going to always be definitive in one direction, but in another direction it will if it's no possibility for the other stamp to have been produced yet. So it's not uncommon to, when you're looking for number 491, which is the rare 2-cent horizontal coil, if you get a cover that has a date earlier than what's the EKU for 491, there's a good chance that unless it's within a few days of the EKU, you have the watermark version on a cover, and there's which is 454, and there's no need to lift the stamp in order to check for the watermark. If you're within a day or two, or even a week or so, just to be on the safe side, you might want to have the stamp lifted or lift the stamp yourself in order to check the watermark in that case. Do you think that answers the question, Jim? Hello?
Oh. Hey, Jim, you're on mute. Unmute yourself.
Can I ask a
Bring
question?
everybody back up, Heidi.
Yeah, everybody has the ability to unmute themselves now.
I meant, can you bring everybody up on the screen?
Oh, yeah, hold on.
Okay.
Hi, Steve, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I could probably figure it out, but you might know offhand. So 613 is clear, you tell. What about 610 and 11 and 12? Do you know what they would be offhand in terms of in the template?
Well, they're the 610 and 610 and 611 are both flat plate, and 612 and 613 are rotary. So 612 and 613 are going to be the same size, and that's the
Okay.
same size as the 634.
Right.
And the
Which is
610
what-
and 611 are going to be the same size as the, I believe they're going to be the same size as just the flat plate sheet.
Which is
They're
on the
technically not considered part of the series. I just put 613 on there because there's so much hype when people believe they have a black Harding. They think they have the rare 613. But it is actually a commemorative stamp, I believe, and not part of the
Yeah,
fourth series.
you're right, but if I'm going to check a couple of the stamps that I think could be a 613, it'd be good to have the backup of does it match something better?
And check the back of the stamp. There should be black offset on the flat plate and no black specks on the 613. So that's still a good way to determine whether you have flat plate and offset. Now, the lack of specs isn't, it's probably 99% true that it's if there's no black specks that it's rotary, but it may be that the stamps that were underneath it were dry enough that they didn't let
Exactly.
any attach to the back of the stamps above it for the flat plate issues.
For the first sheet down.
First sheet down, yeah, that, or the stamps were just drying fast. Who knows what it was a hot day and the paper was drying quick. So there wasn't really much of a chance for the set off to adhere to the back of the stamps above it.
Right.
Anybody else come up with any problem stamps that they had? Yeah. Tim, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Good. Have people been using this template?
Every
Yes.
day?
Yeah, good. So I think at that point, we could probably stop recording. Heidi,
All right.
I got a question.
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sure that Casales gauge is supposed to be so good, but I can't find one. They're not around any place that I can find. I see Subway offers a multi-gauge. Is that anywhere near the quality or?
The multi-gauge is fine that Amos Media sells, Lynn's, but you have to make sure that you get version 5.11. And that is on the bottom left-hand corner of the template. The latest ones that they've been putting out say 5.2. Now they're fine if you're just trying to determine whether you have a perf 11 stamp or a perf 12 or whatever, but they are not good enough if you're to try and determine if perforations are fake or not.
And those are available through Subway then?
I don't know. Amos, it's a product that I believe Amos owns the right to, and I think they're the only ones printing them. I don't know if they sell them, wholesale those or not. I guess they do.
Yeah, I'll find it if it's out there.
Okay.
Yeah,